Hoofstuk 22, chapter 22, sterre, stars, second last chapter. Ek is buite julle gastehuis. Mag ek asseblief met jou praat? Byna dadelik verskyn daar 2 blou regmerkies langs my boodskap. My hart mis 'n slag. Sy het dit gelees. Ek hou die skerm ongeduldig dop. Sy antwoord nie. Toe ek opkyk, sien ek 'n gordyn effens roer. Dit word dadelik weer teruggetrek. 'n Oomblik later vibreer my foon. Dis laat, Luan. My pa slaap al. Ek glimlag terwyl ek vir haar tik. Ek sal saggies praat, beloof. Geen antwoord nie. As jy nie uitkom nie, gaan ek voor jou venster kom sing. Dit is wat die ouens in chick flicks en boeke altyd doen. Glo my, jy wil my nie hoor sing nie. Ek klim uit die Land Rover. Op pad hierheen het ek dit 3 keer laat vrek. En ek het amper 'n astrom skuins oorkant die polisiestasie omgery, maar ek dink nie ek het te sleg gevaar nie. Ek het immers nog net 1 ryles in my lewe gehad, by my ouma. Die naglig is yskoud, maar dit ruik anders as in die stad. Skoner. Dit voel of my kop ook skoner en helderder is as wat dit vir 'n lang ruk was. So the beginning of the chapter, Luan says, I'm outside your guest house. May I please speak to you? Almost immediately there's 2 little blue ticks next to the message, and his heart almost misses a beat. She's read his message. He holds the screen impatiently, or he watches the screen impatiently. She doesn't answer. When he looks up, he notices that the curtain has moved slightly, and then it immediately gets pulled close again. A moment later, his phone vibrates. It's late, Luan. My dad's sleeping already. I smile while I send her another message. I'll talk softly, I promise. No answer. Then he says to her, if you don't come out, then I'm going to stand in front of your window and I'm going to sing. That's what the guys do in chick flicks. And in books they always do that. They sort of serenade outside the window. And believe me, Luan says, you do not want to hear me singing. He climbs out of the Land Rover. On the way here, he managed to stall the Land Rover 3 times. Oh, and he almost knocked over a rubbish bin, which was on the other side of the police station. But he doesn't think he did too badly. I mean, after all, he has only had 1 driving lesson in his life, and that with his gran. And the night air is rather icy cold, but it smells different than in the city. It's cleaner. It feels as though his head is also cleaner, and he's thinking more clearly than he has for a long time. Op die stoep gaan 'n lig aan. Hoopelik is dit 'n goeie teken. Ek stoot die tuinhekkie oop en stap in. Lyk my hier ontsluit mense nie hulle hekke nie. Lana kom by die deur uit. Sy het dieselfde groen baadjie van vanoggend aan en haar hare is in 'n mis ingebondel. Sonder om na my te kyk, gaan sit sy op die houtbankie langs die voordeur. Ek staan 'n oomblik lank onseker rond, dan gaan sit ek maar langs haar. Sy staar in die lug op. Ek maak keel skoon. Ek dink nie ek het al ooit soveel sterre gesien nie. Geen wonder hulle bou 'n reuse teleskoop hier naby nie. Dis amper middernag, brom sy. Het jy my die bed gejaag om oor sterre te praat? Ek skud my kop. Die waarheid is, nou dat ek hier is ek nie heeltemal seker wat ek veronderstel is om vir haar te sê nie. Hoe lank moet 'n mens mekaar ken voordat jy jare en jare so opgehoopte gesels het, soos my ouma en oom Jackson? Die deur gaan oop. Lana se ma kom met 2 bekers uitgestap. Naand Luan, sê sy. Dit is moeilik om uit haar kalm stemtoon af te lei wat sy regtig dink. Naand Tannie, groet ek verleë. Ek het vir julle Milo gebring, sê sy, en sit die 2 bekers op die tafeltjie neer. Moenie te lank buite bly nie. Julle sal siek word. Dankie, Tannie, sê ek. Reg so, Tannie. So he notices a light going on the veranda of the guest house. He's hoping it's a good sign. He opens the little garden gate and he walks in. It seems to him that people around these areas don't lock their gates. Lana comes out of the door, and she's got the same green jacket on that she had earlier this morning, and her hair's in one of those, like a green, no, just a beanie, no color mentioned. Her hair is like tucked into a beanie. Without looking at him, she goes and sits on the little wooden bench next to the front door, and he stands around for a moment, unsure, but then he goes and he sits down next to her. She stares up at the sky, or at the air. Well, no, at the sky. Luan clears his throat and he says, I don't think I've ever seen so many stars. No wonder they are building a giant telescope near here. Lana says, it's almost midnight. Did you get me out of bed just to talk about the stars? But he shakes his head. The truth is, now that he's here, he is not really sure what he is supposed to say to her. How long do you have to know someone before you have years and years worth of heaped up conversations like Oma and Jackson? The door opens suddenly and Lana's mom comes out with 2 mugs. She says, Evening, Luan, and it's difficult to hear from her calm voice what she's actually thinking. But he says, "Na, Tannie," he greets her, "Evening, Auntie," and he's a little bit embarrassed. And she just says, "I brought you 2 mugs of Milo." And she puts the mugs down on the table and she says, "Don't stay out too late, please. You're going to get sick." And Luan just says, "Thank you, that's good, Auntie." Sy verdwyn weer in die huis. Ek gee vir Lana 'n beker Milo aan. Sy vat dit sonder 'n woord. "Ek het jou blog gelees," sê ek. "Dit is regtig fantasties." "Spioen," knor sy. Ek grinnik. "Dis jou ding, né? Waarvan praat jy?" "Jou blog, boeke, dis wat jou laat tik, jou opgewonde maak, jou kwaad maak, die ding waaroor jy nie uitgepraat kan raak nie." Sy trek haar skouers op, maar ek verbeel my, ek sien 'n fyn glimlaggie om haar mondhoeke verskyn. Dit laat my 'n bietjie moed skep. "Jy is gelukkig," sê ek. "Ek het nog nooit regtig uitgevind wat myne is nie. Ek het al sport probeer, rugby, tennis, hockey, skaatsplank, judo, skaak. My pa het op 'n tyd 'n fortuin betaal, sodat ek klasse in rekenaarprogrammering kan neem. Ek het verveeld geraak met als." Sy vat 'n lang, slurperige sluk aan haar Milo en draai na my. "En toe gee jy sommer net moed op," vra sy. "Het ek? Ek is nie seker nie. Vandat ek met Ryan en Div pelle geraak het, was dit nie meer nodig om iets te soek om my mee besig te hou nie. Dit was lekker om net altyd by Ryan se idees te kon inval. Miskien is skaapdiefstal my ding, sê ek. Lana's mom went back into the house, and Luan gave Lana a mug of Milo. She took it without a word. And Luan said, "I've started reading your blog. It's really fantastic." And she grumbles and says, "Oh, you spy." Luan just smiles and says, "But that's your thing, eh?" And she says, "What are you talking about?" And Luan says, "Your blog, books, that's what makes you tick. That's what excites you. That's what makes you angry. That's the thing that you can't stop talking about." She shrugs her shoulders, but is it just his imagination, or can he see a fine little smile at the corners of her mouth appearing there? And it gives him a bit of courage. And he says, "You're fortunate, or you're lucky. I've never really found out what mine is. I tried all sorts of sports, rugby, tennis, hockey, skating, judo, chess. And at one stage, he says, my dad spent a fortune so that I could do computer lessons or learn computer programming. But I soon always get bored with everything." She takes a long, slurpy sip of her Milo and turns to Luan. "And so you just gave up, you just had no more courage," she says. She asked him. "Did I?" Luan asked himself. He's not sure. But ever since he met Ryan and Div and he became friends with them, it wasn't necessary to find things to keep him busy. It was always nice just to fall in with Ryan's plans or Ryan's ideas. And then he says to Lana, "Maybe stealing sheep is my thing." Sy rol haar oë. Luan Lou, jy is die vrotste skaapdief in die geskiedenis van skaapdiefstal. Net in geval jy vergeet het, jou ouma moes keer dat jy met jou agterend in die tronk moet beland. Sê ek. Jy het dalk 'n punt beet. Ek vat 'n sluk van my Milo. Sien, die ding is, daar is iets eienaardigs besig om met my te gebeur. En ek weet nie hoe ek daaroor voel nie. Dis jy. Sy kyk vraend na my, een wenkbrau gelig. Ek ken jou skaars 2 dae lank, maar ek kan nie ophou dink aan jou nie. My pa waarsku my deesdae gedurig oor mense wat 'n slegte invloed op my is. Ek is bang jy gaan 'n slegte invloed op my wees. Jy het my immers ooreed om 'n skaap te steel. Is jy mal? Vra sy verontwaardig. Ek het nooit gesê jy moet. Ek leun oor en soen haar. Nie 'n piksoentjie soos gistermiddag in oom Jackson se skaapkraal nie. 'n regte egte soen wat my asem wegslaan en my gesig in die koue naglig laat gloei. Die soort soen wat jy met 'n stophorlosie kan meet as jy wil seker maak dit is 'n behoorlike soen. En sy soen my terug, tot ons asem op is en ons verleë begin lag. Ek leun terug teen die koue, harde houtbankie en kyk weer op na die sterre wat lyk of hulle skielik effe die duiselig in die lug ronddraai. My vingers voel rond tot dit hare raak vat. Ons vingers vleg gemaklik saam, soos 2 legkaartstukke wat perfek in mekaar pas. Ek weet nog nie wat my ding is nie, sê ek, maar dit voel of ek weer moet begin soek. Gaan jy my help? So Lana rolls her eyes and says, Luan Lou, you remember he just said like, maybe my thing is being a sheep thief. She says to him, Luan Lou, you are the worst sheep thief in the history of sheep theft. Just in case you've forgotten, it was your gran that managed to stop you from sitting with your backside in the prison. Says Luan, I think you have a point there. And he takes a sip of his Milo. And he says, you see, the thing is, there's something strange that's happened to me. And I'm not too sure how I feel about it. And he says, it's you. And she looks at him questioningly, with one eyebrow lifted. And Luan continues and he says, I've scarcely known you for 2 days, but I can't stop thinking about you. My father warned me nowadays about people that'll have a bad influence on me. And I'm scared that you are going to have a bad influence on me. I mean, I've hardly known you 2 days and you already convinced me to steal a sheep. She says to him, are you mad? She's like, what? I never said you must. And then he leans forward and he kisses her. Not this little peck like they did that afternoon in William Jackson's sheep kraal. A real, echte, genuine kiss that takes your breath away and makes his face glow even though it's extremely cold night air. The kind of kiss that you can measure with a stopwatch to know that it's a real proper kiss. And she kisses him back until they takes their breath away and they laugh embarrassedly. Luan leans back against the cold, hard wooden bench. And he looks up at the stars, and it looks as though almost the stars up there are a bit dizzy because he's feeling a bit dizzy. But their fingers feel they grab each other's hands, and their hands intertwine like 2 puzzle pieces that fit perfectly. And he says, I don't really know what my thing is yet, but it feels as though I need to start searching, and I want to know if you are going to help me. En dis die einde van hoofstuk 22.